Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP, Nick is here in attendance with me once more, as today we're going to be going through our NXT recap from last night's NXT, being the 13th of May edition. Let's get down to the action. Let's talk about everything that went down and discuss all of the happenings throughout the entirety of the night. So, first and foremost, we would begin the show with the winner of the Battle Royal last week to determine the number one contender for the NXT Championship, and that would be Miles Bourne. He would be accompanied by the rest of the No Quarter Catch crew, as he would basically just cut almost like a very honest promo. He basically go on to discuss the unlikelihood of him winning, and he would basically sort of like open up on, I think, what a lot of people have probably already sort of figured out beforehand, but it's always nice to sort of like hear officially from the superstar himself, and that he is partially deaf. He would go on to say how he's fighting to show what's possible, that he wants to be judged on his ability and not his disability. So basically a very honest segment here from Miles Bourne, becoming the number one contender for the NXT Championship, and now he's basically just letting everybody know what the situation is so that he can so that everybody could be on the same page. Speaking of Page, Ethan Page was come on down, and he would interrupt Miles, basically before saying how much of a fluke last week was. Anybody can randomly win a Battle Royal, given their opportunity, and that's exactly what Miles did, according to Ethan Page. So Page would then basically tell Miles that he isn't ready for Obafemi, and that he can't beat him, that he's got no chance. And in fact, he said that he couldn't even beat Ethan Page either. Ethan would then say to Miles, you know what, you should put your number one contendership spot on the line in a match later on with me tonight. Charlie Dempsey would get involved, and we saw a little bit of an interaction between Charlie and Miles last week, and it was sort of a little bit sketchy. Charlie wanted the opportunity, and he wanted to actually take it from Miles, and he wanted to be the number one contender for Obafemi at Battleground, so he wanted to actually take the opportunity away from him. But instead, this time, Charlie would basically say, you know what, well, this is a good opportunity for you to prepare by fighting a former NXT champion, and that can give you the experience to take on the current NXT champion. And Miles would agree with that. He would basically take that as inspiration, and he would accept Ethan Page's challenge. So setting up that match for later on in the night, Miles one-on-one with Ethan Page for the for a spot against Obafemi, basically. So putting that opportunity on the line. Ava would come on down basically straight after that, and she would make the match official before then saying, Charlie, don't look too happy because your match with Obafemi is right now. And that would segue very nicely into our next segment, because it would be Obafemi one-on-one with Charlie Dempsey with No Quarter Catch crew at ringside. And the NXT champion, Obafemi, he'd get the job done. He would defeat Charlie Dempsey. No real shocks or surprises here. If Charlie Dempsey was to have won, then that would definitely have been very interesting going into that that matchup at Battleground. So, yeah, like I say, the right call here. Obafemi winning. He's gone through one member of No Quarter Catch crew. Obviously, he had to go through Miles Bourne to retain his championship, but this gives Miles opportunity firsthand to see how destructive Obafemi can be, and he proved it in this match. It was a fine match. It was decent enough. It was good from Charlie Dempsey, actually. He had a very, very strong opening and early stages of the contest, about halfway through, and then Obafemi would turn things around using his size and stature, and that would allow him to get the victory in the end, overpowering Charlie Dempsey. The second after that would be a one-on-one match between Wesley and Tony D'Angelo, and the Don of NXT, he was rolling. Tony was basically just finishing up to end the contest, and then suddenly Channing Sax Lorenzo appears on the Tron, and he would be outside Rizzo's safe house, who's been hiding away for the last few weeks, as of the orders of Tony D'Angelo, basically saying how, I know all your secrets, I know everything, I know the safe houses and whatnot, so here I am. And that distraction would be enough for Wesley to take advantage. He would get the victory after hitting the cardiac kick, and that would be 1-2-3 for Wesley getting the victory. So D'Angelo, after that match, quickly sort of rolling out the ring, realizing the situation is obviously, ongoing, and he would run to the backstage to basically just, go after Stacks. The segment after that was quite an interesting one. It was Stephanie Vicaire cutting a promo to begin with in the middle of the ring. She would talk about Jordan Grace before being really quickly interrupted, honestly, by Fatal Influence. She didn't really get a lot of her chest at the start there, Stephanie Vicaire, until Fallon and JT turned up. And it is a weird dynamic. We've seen a little bit of tension between Fatal Influence recently, But this was like really, really telling, this segment, because Fallon and JC, they would sort of take turns at almost just talking over each other and just sort of questioning each other and what they're actually meaning and whatnot. It was definitely a strange dynamic from those two specifically. But going forward, they would basically discuss Steph's title victories and her impending downfall that they're sort of predicting that's going to happen to her very, very soon. After that, Jordan Grace would come on down. She'd enter the scene, basically saying how she's going to protect her investment. She's talking about Stephanie and her NXT Women's Championship, saying that she'll beat Steph at Battleground. Fatal Influence sort of like chime in towards the end, saying how it doesn't really matter who wins between Jordan and Steph, that they're going to be waiting for them at the end, and they deserve to be at the top of the division, and that's what they're going to be doing. They're calling their shot. It was almost an awkward segment though at times. It just felt really like all four women were just sort of like there, and they were just doing their thing. The flow was a bit odd. I don't know if you really got that vibe, Nick. I'm interested to see what you thought of this particular segment here. But what did you think of the overall start to NXT? Miles and Ethan set up that match for later on. Ober against Charlie. It was quite interesting dynamic there. Tony D'Angelo, he's got some big problems still with Stacks, but that match against Wesley was pretty decent. And then that interesting four-way segment at the end there.
Yeah, I like the Miles Bourne segment. I like the honesty, the showing a side of himself, the very real side. I think that I like that angle. I like the how that will probably resonate with the fans and help him get support from the fans. So I like that aspect. And then Charlie kind of peer pressuring him into saying, accept that challenge from Ethan. I think that's very telling, and kind of the jealousy or angle between Charlie and Miles at the moment. So I like the opening segment. I think it does a good job of continuing that story there. In terms of the Oba Femi Charlie Dempsey match, I thought that one was pretty competitive as well. I like the dynamic of Oba's strong style, or not strong style, big man style, and going up against the technical abilities of Charlie Dempsey. I want to say that probably one of Charlie's best matches that I've seen. It's been such a long time since I've seen him in the ring. I feel like ever since the Cup, he really hasn't been around that much in terms of especially singles matches. It feels like it's been a while. So it's good to see him, and I think he has a tremendous ability, and I think he has a bright future. But yeah, this was a good match. Obviously, Obafemi looking strong here per usual. Tony D'Angelo and Wesley match was good enough. You hear us complain about this often, and at least me, you hear me complain quite a bit about the finishes. This one kind of falls in that same kind of category. Distracted by Stacks on the Tron, and of course Wesley capitalizes and wins. It is what it is, but at least this is a pretty big story at the moment, so it helps continue that. Obviously, Tony D'Angelo, rightfully so, distracted. At least this distraction makes a little more sense. Very concerned, about the safety of someone, someone and somewhere he cares very much about. So seeing him leave here made sense and helped kind of further that story. And then, yeah, this promo here was different. I didn't really know anything worthy from Stephanie and Jordan. Very much, par for the course. Nothing really noteworthy there. But yeah, we'd noted in prior weeks the tension between JC and Fallon. It was a little more subtle, and I remember saying specifically, it feels like this is kind of out of left field because, especially now, we don't have a ton of factions, especially on the women's side. Especially now, and so for me to kind of start teasing this feels like a little, it doesn't feel like a great decision. I understand both of them have I think ability to hold their own at this point, but yeah, I didn't really see this one coming. But yeah, I do agree with you. It was very it had a lot of tension. It was a bit awkward, and for them to kind of come in between Jordan and Vicaire here seems also a little out of left field. I know they've had some issues in the past, but maybe they're worried that Jordan and Vaquero can't hold their own. I'm not sure. But regardless, everything that kind of played out here worked for me. And and we'll talk about the match a little later on as well. But yeah, great first half to NXT on my end.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, there were definitely some high points for sure. How about we move along with the rest of NXT? So we would then go into what we've already spoken about earlier in the in this session. So we had Miles Bourne going 1-on-1 with Ethan Page, and like I said, that was for the number one contender spot for the NXT Championship. Miles Bourne putting his opportunity on the line against Page. This was a pretty competitive matchup between the two men. It was an opportunity to see Miles Bourne in a high stakes matchup, leading into Overfemi. Obviously, we saw him in the Battle Royal, but this is very much all attention on him and him, basically only, but obviously it's 50-50 between him and Page. So, yeah, it was definitely a nice way of sort of like getting him some exposure against somebody of some very high credibility on NXT. What are the other top guys really in Ethan Page? And I'd say probably going into this one, this has probably been Miles Bourne's, it's probably been his most important matchup, his biggest match that he's had. Like, he's had some one-on-one matches in the past, but mostly been involved in, like, the odd tag team matchup. Obviously, the Battle Royal. But, yeah, this is literally one-on-one, nowhere to hide against someone like Ethan Page. That's quite impressive. And for him to get the victory here and defeat him without any sort of shenanigans, no influence from No Quarter Catch Crew at ringside, it was just all Miles Bourne in the end, in that finish. I think it's a very impressive win for him. I really, really do. He sort of just like come out of his shell very recently, and he sort of like suddenly just appeared, just like pushing himself up, which is absolutely fantastic. It's always nice to see some fresh faces get involved, and earning opportunities, and that's exactly what he's done. He's clearly been working very, very hard, and he's rising his stock very, very well. So yeah, this was a good match. Ethan Page, didn't let him go down without a fight. It was competitive for sure. And Miles looked very impressive, and Ethan Page looked as consistent as he normally does as well. So yeah, really good win for Miles. Very impressed for sure. The match afterwards, Tia Hale 1-on-1 with Tatum Paxley. There'd be a little bit of lead up into this one at the back, and it would basically be Tia Hale and Carmen Petrovich walking along. Tatum Paxley, there's a doll's house, and she's absolutely going crazy. She's throwing dolls at the house, and she's knocking it over, and she's screaming. And it gets to a point where Tatum just literally just starts shouting at Tia Hale and Carmen Petrovich, saying she's, directing this at Carmen. She's gonna leave you, like talking about Tia Hale, because that's all that friends do. They just leave you. I've lost so many people. I've lost another one, and everyone just leaves me. And she's just absolutely just going crazy. She ends up running off to a shouting Ava, so I'm assuming that would lead to this matchup. She wants to have a match with Tia Hale, and it was a pretty fun match for the most part. I'm not gonna lie. I think both women sort of like had their moments for sure. Got to a point where Tia Hale was locking in the Kimura lock, and this was basically towards the very, very late stages of the matchup, towards the end. And Tatum is doing well to hold on. She's fighting through the pain, and then suddenly she just almost like a little switch flicks in her head, and she literally just starts like crawling almost like upwards on Tia, and she literally goes for her eye and starts to like almost try and gouge out Tia Hale's eyeball. It was quite the strange finish to the matchup. A very unique way to get disqualified for sure, because that's what happened afterwards. Tia Hale would win via disqualification. Can't just go and gouge people's eyes out, and that's fair. But yeah, it was it was a very unique way of, I suppose, getting out of submission, but she lost as well at the same time. So yeah, the definite crazy side of Tatum Paxley's coming out here, and she's just so great at working that sort of gimmick here. So yeah, I like this one. To be fair, it was a unique way to finish a matchup, so I didn't mind that. And officials had to come down afterwards to separate the two women. It was quite unique, quite interesting for sure. The segment after that, we would see a contract signing between Joe Hendry, the TNA champion, and Trick Williams. Ava watching on as sort of like a mediator in this one. Tensions rose high, but then were sort of calmed down by Ava very well, very early on. Trick, there were a few good lines here in this one, actually, to be fair. Joe would say to Trick that he's forgot himself, and instead he just basically bitches now. That's all he really does. Trick would fight back, saying that actually, well, he's bigger than NXT and TNA, and actually bigger than them both combined. He's got the right to do so. Joe would say that the match that they're going to be having It might not be Trick's biggest one, but it's his most important because of what it means for Trick if he loses. Because Joe says he's going to beat him, and after he does so, there's going to be no way for Trick to get back into relevancy, no way to get into the title picture. It's all going to be downhill from there. So he's going to be stuck, and it's all going to be because of Joe Hendry. So it was quite a cool little segment here between these two men, highlighting the importance of the TNA title being defended on WWE television for the very first time. So yeah, raising those stakes and is looking pretty great going into that matchup for sure. I'm excited for it. Then we go into our main event. We'd have the sort of end result of what took place earlier on with that segment in the ring with all four women. Jordan Grace teaming up with Stephanie Vicaire, taking on Fatal Influences Fallon Henley and JC Jane. And it would be Jordan and Stephanie that would get the victory here. Yeah, it was pretty standard for a women's tag team match, I'm not going to lie. So a couple of nights in a row, we've had a women's tag team matchup, main event, a WWE Weekly televised show. Yeah, it was good. It was fine. It did what it needed to be done. Jordan Grace and Stephanie working together before they become opponents at Battleground just sort of like added a little bit of elements in there. And yeah, it was a victory for Jordan and Stephanie in the end, which you would pretty much expect, from the situation. So both women getting a victory going into Battleground. No, it's just what needs to be done. There's not really too much to say about it, except for that's exactly how you would have expected to go down. But afterwards, we would sort of see, as they're celebrating, Ethan Page shown backstage taking out Ricky Saints. Like he's got him laid out in front of one of the shutters at the backstage area. And yeah, then it's basically just the camera panning back to the ring where Stephanie and Jordan are celebrating again. So yeah, NXT basically in a nutshell. What do you think of towards the ending stages there, Nick, with Mars Bourne, Ethan Page, Tia Hale and Tatum Paxley, the contract signing, as well as the tag team match at the end?
Yeah, the Miles Bourne and Ethan Page match was pretty good. As kind of alluded to earlier, and similar to Dempsey, I feel like I don't see Miles Bourne on a singles platform, so this was good to get him some time. He looked pretty good here as well. It doesn't hurt that you're in the ring with Ethan Page. So yeah, this match ended up doing pretty well in terms of making Miles look good and make it look like maybe he stands a chance against Oba. Probably not, but yeah, Ethan Page really made him look good here. The Tatum Paxley bit, you kind of mentioned it before. Blatantly kind of pointing to the fact that her stable or her teammates have been released was an interesting decision on WWE's half. I know there's some in there that haven't been, but clearly that seems like what they were doing there. So interesting decision on WWE's behalf there. But yeah, the match itself was well enough. Again, another DQ finish. This time, similar to the last time, it feels like it's at least making sense in the grand scheme of things. Tatum clearly not in the right state of mind and just forgot she was in a match, I guess, but clearly not in the right state of mind. So I think that's our overall takeaway here. So interesting to see where they take that from here. The Joe Hendry, Trick Williams contract signing, yeah, nothing really too groundbreaking there. A good note that Joe Hendry said, once you lose this match, you really had nothing else to go for. And it's kind of true, and it's kind of what we've been saying, or at least, I've been saying that I don't think Trick had the time left to do on NXT, and I think that kind of plays in the same category there. So interesting to see if Trick does in fact lose here. Where he goes from here. If Trick does win, though, however, that will be a much more interesting conversation we can have, I suppose, after Battleground. And then the main event, yeah, another women's main event tag match here. Yeah, so along with all the controversy there, I think there was a move or two here that I noted in particular that Fatal Influence seemed to be lacking that cohesion that they've been having in the ring, so kind of played a part in the match as well. That being said, while they did take the loss, they handed out quite a bit of offense, and against considering the team they were up against in Jordan Grace and Vicaire, I think that says something to both the abilities of JC and Fallon. So I nothing to bat an eye at losing this, obviously. But it's interesting. I think Fallon and JC both kind of have abilities to go on their own. Just be interesting to see how quickly they pull that trigger. or if this is just kind of a bump in the road. As we've seen many times on main roster, one day of tension does not equal a splitting team. So interested to see where they take that. And then, yeah, apparently Ethan Page not quite done with Saints, so continuing that rivalry going forward. No complaints from me. I still feel like the best is yet to come from that rivalry. So looking forward to that as well. But yeah, in terms of NXT overall, yeah, there were some advanced storylines here. Nothing groundbreaking in ring. A couple of decent matches, and from people we don't usually see matches from. So that was good at least. I think I kind of went back and forth between a 6.5 and 7. I think I'm gonna give it a 6.5. Just felt like we did a good job of advancing some storylines, but in the grand scheme of things, it felt like more of a filler episode, which is strange considering that after tonight we have one more episode until Battleground. So yeah, see the Battleground card fill out a little more. I'm sure we will do some more of that as well next week. But overall, a decent episode of NXT. Better than Raw, so I got that going for him.
Yeah, better than Raw. Yeah, it's not even close, is it? To be honest with you, but yeah, I guess that's something we can definitely take away from this. I gave it a 7, so very very close to being on the same wavelength there with our ratings. But yeah, it was a step in the right direction for sure with a number of these segments. Bar a little bit of confusion or whatever in parts, but yeah, did a decent enough job, and Battleground draws a little nearer. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what's going to go down a little bit closer to the time. So, thank you to everybody for tuning in to the Push with Dick and KP. This has been an NXT recap. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed what it is we are putting down here. If you are so, please hit a like on the video, subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with future content coming forward. Let us know in the comments what you thought about this one as well, whether you think that this was better than Raw as well, or perhaps maybe, it's just sort of like it's a little bit stagnant at the moment. But yeah, until next time, which will be SmackDown recap, we'll see you all soon. Take it easy, and thank you very much for tuning on in. This has been the Push with Dick and KP. We'll see you all next time.